Quickly we sort of really got to know each other, but when I was just 16, I suppose, and I started.
Okay, let's talk about David Gilmour. The man, the myth, the guitar solo that basically invented feelings. You know him as the soul of Pink Floyd, the guy who made an electric guitar sound like it was weeping in slow motion. But here's the twist. Behind all that psychedelic magic and stadium-sized sound, Gilmour was out here quietly fangirling over a lineup of powerful women in rock. And honestly, it's not the list you think. In the opening of this story, we meet Gilmour not as the rock god, but as a wide-eyed teenager, just 16 years old, already in tune with the kind of music that hits you right in the gut. This isn't a guy who brags or flexes fame. He listens deeply. And when certain women stepped up to the mic, he felt something shift. This intro isn't just setting the scene. It's giving us a rare look into what shaped his heart before he shaped a generation. Before the tours, before the legends, before the echoing solos. There was silence. And into that silence came 5 voices that would end up defining not just his music, but his very soul. Joni Mitchell and David Gilmour. All right, let's spill the tea. Did you know that David Gilmour, the man behind those spine-tingling Pink Floyd guitar solos, totally had a spiritual awakening the first time he heard Joni Mitchell? Yep, this wasn't just a fan moment. It was a soul-level connection. Gilmour was cruising through the English countryside, probably not expecting anything major, when, bam, Joni's voice came on the radio, and it hit him so hard he practically had to pull over. That was the moment everything changed. Joni wasn't just singing, she was weaving spells with sound. Her use of open tunings, those unpredictable melodies, and her raw, poetic lyrics struck something deep in him. She didn't just perform music. She made it bleed, breathe, and break you open. When they finally met backstage in London in the 1970s, she played an early version of Coyote, while Gilmour sat quietly, absolutely transfixed. They barely spoke, but somehow, a quiet kind of electricity passed between them, like they recognized each other without needing to say a word. For Gilmour, Joni became the mirror he didn't know he needed, reflecting the quiet ache and beauty inside his own creative spirit. And that stayed with him for life. Stevie Nicks and David Gilmour. Okay, buckle up, because when Stevie Nicks entered David Gilmour's orbit, it wasn't just a meet cute. It was a full-blown cosmic collision. Picture this. It's Los Angeles, mid-wild 80s energy, and Gilmour is in a studio when in glides Stevie. Not walks, glides, like a silk-draped storm on a mission. Lace boots, eyeliner thicker than secrets, and a vibe that says, "I've survived things you wouldn't believe." Gilmour didn't just notice, he was spellbound. Stevie wasn't just a singer to him. She was the embodiment of resilience, wrapped in velvet and moonlight. Her lyrics, not songs, spells. Her voice, a smoky echo from a different realm. There was talk of a collaboration, and honestly, the universe should have made that happen. But even without a duet, that one brief encounter stuck. Because Gilmour didn't just hear Stevie, he felt her. What drew him in most wasn't the mystique. It was the fight beneath the glitter. This was a woman who faced heartbreak, addiction, betrayal, and came back swinging again and again. Gilmour once said it wasn't just her sound, it was her survival. She wore pain like poetry and turned every scar into a stanza. For him, Stevie wasn't just a rock star. She was a storm, a survivor, and a melody that lingers long after the lights go out. Chrissie Hynde and David Gilmour. When Grit met Grace in a green room. Now, let's get into the absolute rock rebel who made David Gilmour sit up and say, "Okay, that's what raw power looks like." Enter Chrissie Hynde, the fierce, no-frills frontwoman of the Pretenders. This wasn't some sweet, starry-eyed admiration. This was admiration laced with awe and just a little fear, the good kind. Gilmour first saw her live in the early 1980s, and according to legend, she didn't take the stage, she claimed it. Like she had a bone to pick with the universe and a mic to scream into. For Gilmour, who's always been the introspective architect of moody guitar landscapes, Chrissie was a total jolt to the system. She didn't romanticize pain, she weaponized it. Her voice was all grit, her presence pure energy. They met in Paris at a tribute concert, shared a bottle of red wine in a green room, and had the most unlikely yet electric conversation. She talked politics, he talked pedals. Opposites? Totally. But it worked. What hit Gilmour hard was how Chrissie didn't polish her edges. She let them cut. And in doing so, she reminded him that rock wasn't born to be safe or soft. It was supposed to bleed. And Chrissie? She bled beautifully.
Let's talk about Kate Bush, the ethereal force of nature who didn't just sing, she summoned. And guess who discovered her before the rest of the world even knew what hit them? Yup, David Gilmour. Imagine it. Late 70s, Gilmour gets handed a demo tape. It's rough, it's raw, it's magical. Most people might have shrugged. But David? He heard the future. He wasn't just impressed, he was convinced she was destined to change music. And he wasn't about to let her voice get lost in the noise. So what does he do? He brings her into the studio, not to mold her, but to protect what made her otherworldly. He fought for her sound, made sure the magic stayed untouched. And when Wuthering Heights dropped, Gilmour stood back, not with pride, but with reverence. Kate wasn't a typical rising star. She was pure creative chaos, wrapped in ballet twirls and mythological metaphors. And that's exactly why Gilmour adored her. She reminded him that music isn't about fitting in, it's about bending reality. She didn't chase fame. She bent time and space to her will. For Gilmour, Kate Bush wasn't just a discovery, she was a glimpse into the divine. Patti Smith and David Gilmour. Now here's where things get real. You wouldn't immediately pair Patti Smith with David Gilmour, right? One's the poetic priestess of punk, the other's the moody architect of prog rock soundscapes. But guess what? Gilmour low-key adored her, from afar, quietly, like someone who recognizes a lightning storm and just stands there in the rain, watching in awe. They never collaborated, barely crossed paths, but her voice haunted him, in the best way. It wasn't about flashy fame or commercial hits. It was about that energy Patti brought. Her art didn't ask permission. It kicked the door down and said, "Feel this." And Gilmour? He did. Deeply. He once said her lyrics felt like scripture, sung through shattered glass. That's not admiration. That's a kind of spiritual devotion. During tough creative seasons, he'd put on her early records, letting her rage and rawness cut through the noise in his own mind. She reminded him that music doesn't have to be beautiful to be true, it just has to be honest. Patti wasn't just rebellion for rebellion's sake. She was a sermon in combat boots, turning chaos into clarity. And for Gilmour, that was sacred. Not noise, not rebellion, revelation. David Gilmour's Muse Map. When legends find light in other legends. So, here's the plot twist no one saw coming. The man whose guitar could make time slow down was quietly being shaped by the voices of 5 fearless women. Joni Mitchell gave him the language of longing. Stevie Nicks showed him how to turn wounds into spells. Chrissie Hynde reminded him that rebellion should hurt a little, Kate Bush cracked reality wide open, and Patti Smith, she brought the fire of truth, no filter, no apology. This wasn't just a list of favorites, it was a soul playlist. These women didn't just inspire Gilmour, they anchored him. In the quiet between chords, in the haze before a solo, in the lonely backstage moments of a world tour, their voices were the compass. He didn't just admire their music, he carried it with him, like armor, like scripture, like a secret he never needed to explain. Because even legends need their own heroes. And for David Gilmour, these five weren't just icons, they were lifelines. Proof that real artistry isn't about being loud. It's about being real, being raw, and daring to feel deeply, even when the world expects you to stay silent. And that's the story behind the sound.